A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and it's Weekend Grill number 7. Paul Sebastiani, Adrian Deha.
Welcome.
We're here to do it all again. Big weekend, big week of AFL news that has occurred and is coming up to us. We've got a stack to go through, but AD, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm blessed. How are you?
Very well, very well. Blessed as well. We've got heaps to get through. Tassie, they're getting a team.
They are.
They are getting a team. So we're going to have to go over that. The AFL and the federal government, mind you, have just announced that...
Big dollars, big cash.
It is. Huge cash down in the Apple Isle. Umpire chat, it's reared its ugly head again. They were disgraceful again on the weekend, which we'll get into. We've also got, now, a new little concept here on the Weekend Grill. Now, you can send in these as well if you'd like. We're going to be doing some seeds, some rankings. So we're going to have our top 5 teams and top 5 players in the competition to date. We're going to call it Who is Cooking. So be on the lookout for that at the halfway point of the program. I've got a bit to say about Charlie Curnow as well and the Sydney Swans. You're going to touch on the Mighty Hawks.
I am.
Lovely. We'll get to some audience questions, which, mind you, just before we get stuck into the nitty-gritty of the show, a big thank you to the audience.
Everyone, agreed.
And a big thank you to all those who have sent in questions. We'll get to those.
Support. Appreciate it.
It's been fantastic. And also...
Mate, the questions are... We've had a look at the questions and they're very, very... They're good. They're very good questions.
We have a very informed and educated audience, I believe, is what we've got, which is great.
We appreciate every single one of them.
And big announcement as well. We've reached 100 followers on both Instagram and Twitter. So... Thank you to the audience again.
You want to organise a medal?
Yeah. We'll send them out. Send us your addresses. So we'll go through the audience questions and then the round 8 preview. So we're a third of the way through the AFL season. It has zipped by, but I think the most newsworthy topic throughout the week, it's been doing the rounds on the socials and in mainstream. Tasmania, they're getting a football team, AD.
They are, Paul, and it's good to see that a state like Tasmania finally has their own team.
Yes.
As opposed to, a couple of clubs venturing down there for a couple of games every year.
Yep.
It's a very good decision by the AFL, in my opinion, and they need to realise that they can't get this wrong. And I think they need to be very pragmatic about their approach. And they need to put things in motion to grow the game there. I know it's big there, but... I'm talking more in the aspect of grassroots level and all community-based or all community-driven AFL involvement needs to start there. And the reason why we say that is because we've seen with the the 2 most recent additions to the competition in GWS and Gold Coast where, a lot of players from other states that get drafted there and they all want to leave. And I don't think the AFL can stuff this up because the last thing they want to do is, Tasmania to be another feeder club for Victorian clubs.
Exactly.
So I also want to discuss the possibility or the idea of a team like Gold Coast to be dissolved. So,
I'm not against that.
Well, the thing is, they've been in the competition for however many years, 10 years plus.
Yeah.
They're reliant on the AFL, so they're already a liability to the AFL.
Correct.
Any player that wants to go there, after 3-4 years they apply their trade there, they want to come back home.
Spot on.
There's no substance there. There's no crowds there. They get 5,000 people to a game or 10,000 people to a game. Half of them follow the opposition.
Correct.
I just think, I know the AFL is big about broadening the competition and making it a national competition. I'm just of the opinion that the AFL should at least consider removing the Gold Coast from the whole competition. Do they? It's a liability. And in a business or in times like we are now where things are all financially driven and every decision is transactional, every way that people move, in these corporate positions it's all about the money. And when and it comes down to your bottom line, I do think they should be considering getting rid of the Gold Coast or finding a way to phase them out, especially now that they're bringing in this Tasmanian team. They're considering a team in Darwin or northern Western Australia. But yeah, look, I know there's a lot to play out from here until then.
Yeah,
I think as we're recording this show now, Glenn McLaughlin and Andrew Dillon will be up on the stage announcing the Tasmanian team.
Yes.
But yeah, look, great for Tasmania, great for their people. It's a historical state. They well overdue and thoroughly deserved. But yeah, just on the Gold Coast, I think the AFL more so than the GWS Giants.
Okay.
I think there's a bit more scope in Western
Yeah.
Sydney.
Well, they've performed on
They
field.
have, correct, and we've also proven just that grassroots level as well, that the participation levels in New South Wales are a lot higher than Queensland.
Correct.
But yeah, I think they should consider getting rid of the Gold Coast. I know a lot of people will disagree. You know, they were quick to jump on the train of putting North Melbourne down to Tasmania and removing that, but I do think one of the better things at the front of their mind should be getting rid of the Gold Coast. They're just becoming a liability, as I said. What do you think?
I think it's a feasible argument. I want to unpack it a little bit more. So I think initially my thoughts on it were, who's going to want to go down to Tassie? But I've actually heard and have been talking to a few people about this, and just regular footy fans like you and I, and you know, we follow the game religiously. And I think the one thing that they were saying is that, no, Tasmania's actually become it's become a
attractive.
Place where, which I went about.
I actually like Tasmania.
Yeah, I went about 3 or 4 years ago, and I only went for like 3 or 4 nights, so I didn't really get stuck right into it or anything, or sink my teeth into the state or anything like that. But I was like, where's the nightlife? I'm like, where's the buzz here? It was probably just that time of the year that I went. But
this is why I do think they need to be very focused and centric to drafting players that are from Tasmania.
Yes.
Because that's what they've accustomed to.
Yeah, they understand the lifestyle.
That's right.
You know? And I think that the one thing that I looked at now, and because initially I'm like, here we go again. The AFL, they've just given it out because it's a sympathy vote. But then when I actually looked at it, I'm like, no, these businessmen and women and executives are paid exorbitant amounts to get these decisions right. And it's not as though they've just gone out on a whim and said, let's just give them a team.
Of course, yeah.
This has been years in the making.
I just hope they don't. They're in the deep end. I hope that they can swim.
So I've kind of gone back and swayed to the other way of thinking, in that, okay, maybe this actually is going to work. Because what I like about Tasmania is that at least they've got a heritage and something with regards to footy underpinning that club.
Absolutely.
Right? Whereas you look at Gold Coast, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Can you see the Gold Coast winning a flag in 10 years?
No, I can't. I'll be honest, I can't see him being in existence in the next 10 years.
And there you go. They haven't got that backing. They haven't got that foundation with
Nothing
which
to actually drive them.
Who's going to hold them into account? No
Which,
one's holding them into account.
You're big
Huge
on the fans.
Of course, you have to be.
Yeah, fans hold the club
set
to
the standard.
account.
The fans set the standard. So if there's not an overwhelming support and feet being held to the fire, well, they're never going to be any good. And that's where I think the difference between Gold Coast and Tasmania comes in. And I think
absolutely
the other thing I really like as well, in comparison to like Sample and Waffle teams, is you look at West Coast, you look at Adelaide, Port Adelaide, they've come in and been successful because they've had 100 years of history of football behind them, whereas the Gold Coast hasn't. Tassie's had that. We've had some great players from Tasmania, and Tasmania,
a lot of good ambassadors.
Tasmania is a football state.
Absolutely.
Tasmania's a football state, so they've got the backing to be able to do it. Now they've got the federal government funding, which is what, 240 million.
I think 12 million every year. I think they're pumping into it up until maybe the first 8 years.
Yep.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Yep.
I know it's in the millions and it's double-figure millions.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
And it is close to Victoria.
Absolutely.
To, what is it, 45-minute
plane?
Yeah. So it's still very, very close. So no, and the other issue as well, which is going to evolve in time, the name of the team. So Warner Bros have come to the party, and everyone wants a dime.
Everyone wants a clip of the ticket. It's just, we follow a 666 rule. Why not call them the Tasmanian Devils?
Exactly.
Fuck's the difference?
Exactly.
All the same, isn't it?
So, Bros want a clip of the ticket as well. I did like what Robbo said.
I heard
about that on AFL 360. So if anyone wants to go have a look at that, by all means. All right, that's the Tassie discussion. Done and dusted, so they'll be getting their team. So kudos to them.
Congrats.
Now the umpires, AD over the weekend, eye roll moment again.
Eye roll moment, head roll moment.
They were. Look, I don't like slamming them, right? Because it's become such a hard game to officiate because of the way that the AFL has told umpires to interpret the rules and the new rules that are coming in, but. As you say, it doesn't absolve them from being held to account.
No.
The floor is yours.
And, we spoke about it this time last week on the show with one of our viewers sending in a question, and I noticed the level of umpiring has deteriorated, and it's gotten worse and worse. That if last week was Exhibit A, if round 6 was Exhibit A, round 7 was Exhibit B.
A1.
A1. This is just ridiculous. I mean, the game I want to focus on is the obvious one, the last game of the round, Adelaide versus Collingwood.
It's the one everyone's looking at.
I'm not pinpointing specific decisions. However, what I will mention is, had Collingwood lost that game,
Yes.
it would be plausible, and there
Yes.
would be an argument to suggest that it was a consequence of poor umpiring.
Yep.
And I don't want to focus on one decision because I know players make mistakes. Braden Maynard cost his team a goal against Essendon on Anzac Day.
Well, Craig McRae even
You
said
know,
it. He goes, as coaches, we make more mistakes than umpires.
Absolutely. But what I don't like the way that it's heading is, Dan Richardson comes out, the following day and goes, we accept that we got this wrong. We accept we got that. Like, this guy's wasting our time. Like, come on, man. What good is that going to do after the fact?
I know.
The reality
exactly.
coaches are held responsible.
Yes.
Players are held responsible.
Yes.
Why is it that the umpires, in my view, or to the optics, look like they're not held responsible?
Do umpires get dropped?
What's a public statement? What's a PR statement going to do the next day?
Nothing.
Does that do anything to Collingwood supporters on a Monday when they realise they've lost the game?
Do you know what? It probably makes matters worse, in my humble opinion.
I think it magnifies the weakness.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
All that as well. Umpires do get dropped, but not. It's not
made public.
No, it's not.
It's not made public. I understand that, but I just think that it's a bit unfair that, clubs and sometimes coaching decisions and even players, whether they're playing next week or not, because they get held accountable. I just think it's unfair for the supporters and the players to wear the consequence of umpire errors. Yeah. And as I said, I want to reiterate, this is not nitpicking on one decision. I'm talking a consistent level.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Since round 1 this year, I've been keeping an eye on it. We only raised the topic last week. And again, round 7, you can go from the St Kilda Port Adelaide game, the Brisbane Fremantle game, then the Adelaide Collingwood game, and it just got worse and worse. And it's going to get to a point where it may cost the team a win.
Yeah.
And for that and when that moment arrives, as I said, clubs are going to have to wear it. Like, no, clubs shouldn't be wearing it. Wow. But yeah.
No, it's a fair point. To open this up even more, I was at Carlton VFL game on Saturday morning against the Bulldogs at Port Melbourne, and the standard of umpiring was atrocious. So if the umpires at that level coming up are no good, what hope do we have?
I have a feeling, and I need to run. We don't have the numbers, but I have a feeling that the competition itself from grassroots level is struggling to attract umpires. And this is why I think they don't publicly, not shame them, but I don't think they publicly put them in the spotlight.
Yeah.
I'm almost convinced
that
there's the local leagues, they're struggling to recruit umpires. No one wants to be an umpire.
Yes.
The
AFL is actively looking at ways to encourage people to
incentivise them or encourage them in a certain way.
Correct. Again, I'm not huge on and obviously umpires need to be held into account, but for me it's where does the problem stem from? That's the question that needs to be asked. Well,
it's open to interpretation.
Yes, exactly.
It's not mathematics. There isn't one right answer. Like, this is the thing.
Where does the problem, or where do the problems stem from? For me, it's from the top. Always from the top.
Well, they did get this is the interesting part. They've got a fourth umpire on field in 2023.
It's done nothing.
And it's done nothing.
It's probably made matters worse.
Yeah.
It's done nothing. See, even and again in the VFL on the weekend there were four
umpires there.
4 umpires there.
Yeah. Right.
As far as I was looking at. And there was Bulldogs player grabbed the ball, fended off.
Sure.
Tackle got missed. Second tackle hit, dropped the ball. No one called it.
No holding the ball.
No holding the ball.
Yeah.
Play on, and then got called.
And the one from the weekend from the Adelaide game, the two that stand in my mind was everyone wants to talk about the Nathan Murphy incident.
Yes, which was completely wrong.
The Ash Johnson one was worse.
Yeah.
In the context of that game where it's there's fine margins in it, the Ash Johnson one was worse. But look, we'll move on.
Yep.
I know they're humans. I understand people make mistakes.
They do.
But we're talking about a consistent level of mistakes.
Yep.
This is not a one-off incident.
Yep.
This is a recurring flaw,
No
I
doubt.
believe, in our game that needs to be rectified.
Somehow, some way, it needs to be rectified. How they do it, God knows.
Yeah.
Okay, on to better things.
On field.
Things that will make us smile and teams and players that will make us smile. Our new little segment called Who's Cooking? Is Cooking. So we have our top 5 rankings or seeds, whatever you want to call them, with regards to teams and individual players in the league. So we've got a top 5. And you in the audience, you can send in your top 5 as well, whether it's on Twitter or in the YouTube comments or on Instagram, wherever it may be. Please feel free to do so. Let's go through the teams first. I'll let you go with your top 5 seeds, AD. You can fire away if you want to go from 5 to 1 or 1 to 5.
I'll go 1 to 5.
Okay.
So I've been pretty big on this team for the last 2 weeks. Geelong comes in at number 1.
Yep.
Lots of plays missing in there. Very interrupted start to their season. It's onwards and upwards for them. The way they're moving the ball, the way they're defending, Tom Stewart, everything. They've got everything going for them. I mean, I don't want to stretch out the segment, but
yes,
they are my number 1
at
the moment, and I do believe I'll double down. They will be winning the premiership in 2023, back-to-back.
Double down.
Collingwood, number 2. Pie sitting top of the ladder. What are they, 6 and 1? Going great guns. Everyone knows, I think, by now what Collingwood are able to do. And their pressure, the way they move the ball, the way they run, the way they hunt in packs. We don't need to go over it, but they are clear number 2, and I do believe those 2 will be in the grand final. Melbourne, number 3. Melbourne, argument could say they could be top 2, but the thing with Melbourne, with me and Melbourne, is I just think it's a mentality thing with them at the moment. But I do think when they're on, and they score prolifically. The numbers will tell you that as well. Brisbane, number 4. The Lions, they got a big test this week against Carlton and vice versa. Carlton has big tests against them, but I still think there's an element of doubt or a question mark on how they travel.
Fair point.
And that's all within reason if you look at their record. And number 5 was a toss-up between 3 teams. It was Adelaide, Port Adelaide, or St Kilda. And I've gone with Adelaide purely because of their attacking prowess and how they move the ball and how they defend it and how they transition. They're an exciting team, Adelaide. Their 2 key defenders, very, very underrated. And they got forward line that's dynamic with Rankin, Fogarty, Walker, Phil Thorpe, who can pinch in the ruck as well. And they have a very solid ruckman, Riley O'Brien, and a captain that leads from example and can use the ball and damage you in Jordan Dawson. So all roads ahead for Adelaide. That rounds out my top 5.
Okay. My teams, I'll go from 5 to 1. Cats in at 5th. I've got them there. Definitely a premiership threat, obviously, but I mean, according to the bookies, but I penned them after the first 3 rounds after that Gold Coast. I'm still sticking by that, but I still think they can do and probably will do damage in September. I don't think they can win the flag, but you never know. You never know. We've been wrong before. Lions in for 4th. They've got that Gabba. The Gabba just sets them up beautifully. It's become a fortress for them, so they'll lock away 95% of the fixtures up there. Interesting one. I've thrown a bit of a curveball in here. I've got Port in for 3rd. I was bullish on them at the start of the season, and they were a bit shaky in the first maybe 2 to 3 weeks. But since then, I've really liked what they've done. Love the win against St Kilda on the road. And the fixture really opens up for them over the next month, which is huge. Momentum will be built up with Port. I've got them in there. I've got the Pies in for 2nd. Obviously, we're big fans of what they've been able to do this season, and I've got the Demons top seed as well. When it all comes together for them, they're just so hard to beat, so hard to beat. I wouldn't look too deeply into that loss against Essendon. They're looking at September. That's what they've got their eye on. They'll make the top 4. And they'll be a big threat, I think. So they're my number 1 seed at the moment. Let's get on to players, shall we? We've got plenty of love for some fellas around the league. Let's start with yours, AD. Your 1 to 5 seeds for players in the AFL.
Okay, just to set the record or put it out there, how I've adjudicated this obviously is in order, but it's also based on which players are impacting games, which players are solely influencing games, having a direct influence on the outcome of a game.
Correct.
It's not about how many disposals they get. It's not about how many clearances they get. It's not about how many total goals they've kicked. It's these players, how I've assessed it, is which players in numerical order have impacted games directly or influenced an outcome. And number 1, I've got Marcus Bontempelli. Raised in the north, but a true son of the west.
I like it.
Marcus Bontempelli is having an outstanding season. I do think a lot of the success that the Bulldogs are having in their recent weeks is off the back of him. Jeremy Cameron, number 2, equal top goal scorer in the comp. This guy does influence games. Freak. He runs, in transition. Geelong look to use him the most because he's got an engine and he can just outrun his opponents. He's got craft. He's got smarts. You name it.
Love it.
Tick, tick, tick. Number 3, I've got Clayton Oliver.
Ooh.
And it was a bit tricky because Christian Petrarca was going to be there.
He
but
goes okay. They both go all right.
They do. They've got, probably arguably the best 1-2 punch in the comp.
Yep.
Clayton Oliver goes at number 3. Prolific ball winner. Gets his own ball. Has improved his goal kicking. His vision, I watched him a couple games this year, and his vision and the way he moves and just things that he does, you just go, how does he do it?
Does he look like he's strip fitter? I reckon he looks like he's strip fitter, to be honest.
He's grown his hair out. Clayton Oliver, number 3. Number 4, King Charlie Curnow. He's arguably one of the most exciting players to watch in the AFL, and he's doing great things at Carlton. It'd be awesome if they could just deliver the ball to him a lot more fluently and a lot more, in a much better manner. And number 5, 20-year-old Nick Dacos. No surprise that is he 20 or 19? 2003. He's 20.
He's very young.
3rd of January or something.
He's very young.
Yeah. Nick Dacos rounds out top 5. He would be higher, but the 2 times that he's been tagged, I know he's won the ball, and as I said, I'm adjudicating this specifically off influence on games.
Yep.
And those until he answers those question marks where he gets pressured and gets tagged, he possibly could be 1 or 2.
Yep.
But no knock Nick Dacos. We all know his class. We all know how good he is. He's number 5.
Love it. Okay, I'm going 5-1. My 5th seed is Toby Green. Won the match for GWS against Sydney over the weekend. He's just an unbelievable footballer. 4, Nick Dacos. Our love for him on the show is not hidden. Everyone knows how much we love the Macedonia Marvel 2.0. He's a freak. Number 3, Marcus Bontempelli, who we do have a little bit to say on him later in the show as well. I've got an audience question about him. So I've got him in at number 3. Number 2, Jeremy Cameron, who has been just continued on his ways from last season. He's looked incredible. 30 goals. He's equal leading the Coleman with equal first in the Coleman with my number 1 seed.
Please tell me this is not your number 1.
Charlie Curnow.
My Lord.
He's the best player in the league.
I'd borderline.
What are you laughing for?
I'll tell you why I'd consider abducting family members or kidnapping family members to spend an hour with Charlie Curnow, but he's not the best player in the comp.
For mine, he is.
Okay. Fair enough.
For mine, he is. Elite contested mark, elite for score involvements, 30 goals. He's almost, 11 goals ahead of the same time last season. And I think his story, the fact that people were saying that he might never play again, and each step he takes it's by the grace of God, because he was pretty much done and dusted with those knee injuries, and to come back and do what he's done, it's a testament to not just his talent but his mental capacity and his professionalism to get back to a point where he's playing career best football. And let's be honest, he is almost unstoppable. He's almost unstoppable.
He can be. He is the reason you would go the footy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got one of the biggest engines in the league. He can get up to 15, 16 Ks a game. His field kicking has improved. He's a serial match winner. And Carlton are very, very lucky to have a bloke like this.
I certainly think they are too.
He's unbelievable.
He could be the reason. Well, he could determine how far they go.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're going to speak about...
He is a player that can guide you to a premiership or multiple premierships. He is that type of player. I adore him, not just because he plays for Carlton, but I just think he's an absolute freak. And good luck stopping him this season.
Yeah.
I think him and Jeremy Cameron are tracking towards 100 goals.
I wonder if one of them gets it. Be interesting to see.
Well, we get one more game. I reckon they might just miss. I reckon both will get to 80. How's that?
Maybe if they play finals.
Yep. I reckon both can get to 80. I think that's the big thing. But for Charlie, he has been phenomenal this year. And you look at his numbers on the weekend. I know they played the West Coast Eagles, but 18 touches, 15 kicks, 14 marks, 9 goals, 3.
Impressive.
He had 9 score involvements as well. 16 score involvements over the weekend.
9 of them were goals.
Yeah, and he's averaging 9 score involvements per game this season, which is ranked elite. So he ranks elite
in a lot of things.
All the facets for a key forward that you need to be an elite key forward for, he ranks elite in.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think he's the best player in the league at the moment, and I'm sharing. I think Robbo had him number 1 in his top 50.
Did he?
So, yeah,
Impressive.
make of that what you will, AD. Make of that what you will.
A debate is healthy for a democracy that we live in.
Well, that's exactly right.
We're all for a healthy debate. So if anyone wants to sort of comment or let us know if they agree or disagree, by all means.
Absolutely.
The floor is yours.
Speaking of which, I wanted to make mention of the Sydney Swans. Now, there is I don't know if it's a myth or if it's an underlying issue over the last maybe decade or so of teams getting flogged in a grand final and then coming out their next couple of seasons and just going absolutely bombing it. Sydney at the moment are bombing it. They've lost a handful of close games now. I know they do have injuries. But I think a lot of the games that they've lost this season have, one, been tactical, and two, they've just lost their heads. Against Judo, they just lost their heads in the last 15 minutes of that game. They had it wrapped up, sewed up, 4 goals up.
24 points at one stage.
At the 9-minute mark of the last term.
Quarter, yeah.
At home, on your home deck, Battle of the Bridge, home fans.
Some of us knew.
Well, exactly, some of us knew. And I just, they look singed at the moment. They've got Collingwood this weekend, which we'll get to as well, but it's all good and well, pardon me, it's all good and well to prop yourself up and try to make yourself look like the most amazing football club in the world. And I'm envious of the Swans. I do like them as a football club. I think they're a great football club. But if your on-field performance is not doing the talking, what are you there for?
Yeah, very, very true.
Yes. And you know what I'm getting at.
I do.
Qatar Airways, all that schmozzle there. Yeah, you look real good. But when you can't lock out a 4-goal lead against your
rivals,
your next door, your noisy neighbours, well, what are you there for?
Good point.
So they could really be, fair income, the Swans could be done and dusted in the next month. And that back line, as I said, is singed. They've got the Pies this week. Then they have got Fremantle, which should be a win. Then they have got North, which should be a win. Then they've got the Blues. Mm-hmm. Then they have got the bye, and then they've got St Kilda, which is not easy. So you would think that the next couple of weeks that they should be able to get right after the Pies, but that win-loss ledger is not looking great, and I think just a few teams have really sort of gone past them. So that the teams that have done what they have done in the last couple of seasons, you look at the Bulldogs, haven't looked the same since that 2021 grand final. I know they made finals last year, but
I agree with everything you're saying.
This year they've been a bit, the Giants got flogged in a granny, haven't made finals since, or haven't looked like a premiership threat since. Port Adelaide 2007 got murdered in that grand final by Geelong and almost fell apart as a club. They almost folded. They were financially bust.
I remember that. Until Koshy stepped in.
Yeah, well, West Coast are probably the only team that has bounced back, but it took them a little while to get back into the swing of things too. So maybe it's not a myth. I don't know. Maybe it's coincidence.
I think it's
I
think it's an underlying
It's
truth.
An interesting argument.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
An interesting
it does get
argument.
raised, but no one actually dives into it.
I didn't think it was the case. I thought Sydney, after the first 2 rounds, were like, oh, okay. They're here.
They're on,
They had those,
And then they versed Melbourne, I think, which I
smashed.
believe I tipped Sydney that game.
You did.
I remember.
You did.
And I thought they were good things, but
they've unfortunately fallen off. So Sydney, they need to somehow get a wriggle on. Don't know where it's going to come from. They've got a couple of soft kills after the Collingwood game, but you can't lock them in
Completely
with the way
agree.
they've gone. Over to you, AD. The Visionary Hawks.
The Hawks
is what you're calling
They're
them.
a happy team at Hawthorn, and I watched that game on Saturday against the Bulldogs.
Yes, at Marvel.
And
under
for
the
2.5 quarters, I thought the way that they move the ball and the way that they set up and the way that they're being coached.
Yep.
Right, we need to understand that this team is young. A lot of their players are impressionable.
Yes.
Right, and the way they're being developed and the way that they're being coached by Sam Mitchell, I think is going to lead to a lot of success for Hawthorn in the next 3 to 5 years. Now, we obviously just heard that Tasmania's coming in.
Correct.
They're going to take up however many draft picks or get however many sort of drafts and go to the draft and do whatever they have to do, which leads me to believe that Hawthorn have been very pragmatic about this approach in, let's not label it tanking, but there is an element or there is a
We know where we're at.
they know where they're at,
Yes.
and they've communicated that with all their stakeholders, so they're all on the same level. And I just believe that the vision that Sam Mitchell and that club are heading towards and what they see. And as a neutral supporter, a non-Hawthorn supporter, I can see where they're going, and it's looking up.
Yep.
It's looking good. Don't fall off the Hawks. Don't write them off. They could be back there in 3 years.
I completely agree.
I'm being serious about this.
I know their vision is to get back to dynasty mold. That's what they want. That's their.
I can
that's
see.
their
I
aim.
can see it happening a lot quicker than some other clubs.
Yep. And Hawthorn are they know how to do it.
Of course they do.
They have been the epitome of draft, build, develop your own, bang, and win flags. And they've been the model for it in the modern era, I think. So again, nothing's guaranteed, but the fact that you mentioned, they know exactly where they're at.
Absolutely.
And that's the difference. And you've got to sell that to members as well. Doesn't mean that you can't be held into account with results. That's not what we're saying. But if everybody's on the same wavelength, everybody's building towards the same goal,
I just reckon
that's how things occur.
I have noticed with them that the style and the way that they play and how they're implementing it on the field, they're happy to make errors, and I think it's so important in sport in general.
100%.
You know, you need to fail to learn, and a lot of the times what happens is when you make a mistake, people can, you know, in a learning curve.
Yes.
I know people can say, "Oh, but you said umpires make mistakes." It's different.
Yep.
In a learning environment, umpires should not need to learn. Like, they've been umpiring for so long. Half of these players haven't played more than 20 AFL
inexperienced,
games.
Inexperienced.
Right?
Yeah.
When you're in an environment that is relatively inexperienced, you're going to make mistakes. And
Correct.
I just see how they didn't drop their heads after a couple of examples. And I think it's sort of indicative of what they're building. And I think it speaks volumes of the type of characters that they have there. They've got Cade Simpson there, who's one of their coaches.
Assistant coach.
Coach. Yep. Sam Mitchell knows what it's about. I just think, if I'm crystal balling, I can see this club terrorising the AFL within 3 to 5 years max.
All right.
And I'm big on Hawthorn in the future, very, very shortly.
Love it. All right.
Not like Richmond.
No.
Anyway.
Well,
that's a conversation for another day.
I think we did kind of half call their demise earlier in the season.
I think I still stand by it. Damien Hardwick might not even be their coach in 10 weeks, and Cochin won't be playing in 10 weeks.
I think Cochin.
He'll be in a Toyota doing a lap of honour. But anyway, we've got to respect him.
No, we do. He's been a champion for that club.
Both
3-time premiership
Absolutely.
player.
3-time premiership coach
as well, exactly.
God bless.
I think he's the longest serving Richmond coach.
14 years.
There you go. Go.
Anyway, a little bit off topic.
Yes, little box time. We've got plenty of questions to get through. Let's get through some that we missed last week.
Apologise.
Correct. Now, we've got a couple that we need to get through. We've got Gab, we've got Ethan, who have got some questions off the bat. Let's start with, we'll start with Eth. Now, he asked last week, he's got 2 questions this week, so we'll slam through those. He asked, is Bontempelli's season underrated due to the hype and attention on Nick Dacos?
Yeah, well, Ethan, if you're watching, to me, no. He's not. I think a lot of people who view the game will tell you that Bond's season, look in the media, yes, maybe, possibly, potentially because of the latter position that the Bulldogs take up at the moment.
Correct.
I can tell you now, Marcus, to what I do and all the stuff that I run, Marcus Bontempelli's season is not underrated.
Yeah.
He's on track to having one of his best seasons ever. If he continues putting up the numbers that he has in the first 7 weeks.
Yep. I don't think he's underrated. His season has been underrated. I think
it's the attention. Yes,
that's all it is.
The attention he hasn't been receiving. And I think partially for 2 reasons. Nick Dacos is the son of a legend.
Correct.
Nick Dacos plays, no disrespect to the Bulldogs, Nick Dacos plays at a much bigger club than what the Western Bulldogs are.
Yep.
And obviously the first couple of weeks, Bulldogs were struggling. So Marcus Bontempelli, his performances were sort of getting undercut due to the way his team was performing. But mark my words, make no mistake about it, Marcus Bontempelli's season, in my opinion, is not underrated.
Okay, like it. Ethan's also asked, we'll zip off his second question before we get to Gab.
Yep.
This is just opinion. He said Richmond is at the beginning of their rebuild phase, e.g. West Coast Hawks. I want to take this one.
Go for your life.
I don't think they are, because I don't think they're. I think their drafting at the start of the year told me
they're recruiting.
This is the season. They're recruiting.
Yep.
Taranto, Hopper, giving away first-round draft picks was, okay, one last crack with this group. Hasn't gone to plan.
You just said it there. Giving away your draft picks is not rebuilding.
Correct. And I think they have realised it after the first 6 rounds. They're like, okay, not going the way we want it to. We've got some aging veterans. We've got some blokes that just aren't going along great at the moment. And I think they have just turned the wheel the other way to go back to, okay, youth policy now. We've got to start. And they have been forced to. Their hand has been forced a little bit with injuries. So
maybe it's a sign. You were talking about not being coincidences. Maybe it's just the way the universe works.
I don't think they're in rebuild mode like West Coast. I don't even think West Coast really in rebuild mode.
Yeah,
maybe. I think Hawthorn definitely are. Hawthorn definitely are. So I think Richmond have moved into that mold as the season has progressed. I don't think they were at the start of the season. So they could be behind the 8 ball, the Tigs. Now, Gab asked a question off the Twitter sphere. This was from last week. This is for the Blues, would losing Mitch McGovern and gaining Ben Mackay be an overall gain or loss for Carlton? AD.
Would losing McGovern... quite personally, I don't want Ben Mackay.
Yep.
As a Carlton fan.
Yep.
Would losing McGovern and bringing in Ben Mackay be an overall gain or loss? I can tell you now, I don't think it'll be a gain.
Yep.
Losing McGovern, I think, would be a loss, though.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's massive for what Carlton do.
Yep.
I did notice they brought in, Brody Kemp against West Coast, who had an outstanding game for Carlton.
Mm-hmm.
But losing McGovern, I think, is a much bigger loss than what the gain is of bringing in Ben Mackay.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yep. Okay, so it would be an overall loss for the Blues. I tend to agree. I'm over Carlton continually going down the recruit path. If they're going to offload Mitch McGovern, I would prefer they go for picks and start to draft.
Or persist with Brody Kemp.
Or exactly right. Or persist with Brody Kemp, who I actually think just quietly is going to have a good back half of the year.
Yeah.
He was very good against the Eagles. Okay, so that's that question. Let's get on to Roman and Charlie. Roman Enright. He's got a question for the lads. What do you make of Brisbane's season? Could they potentially run deep in September? I think their season has been solid. They can make a deep run into September, but I don't think they can win the flag.
I don't think they can win the flag, Roman and Charlie, but I do think a lot of what they do is going to revolve around what Joe Danaher does.
Yep.
Their defense is pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Their forward line, I mean, when they want to turn up is when they turn up.
Yep.
Charlie Cameron does Charlie Cameron things. Joe Danaher is the linchpin. He is the key. If he runs riot, they will go deep.
Okay.
If he is held, they're cast.
Yep. Okay. I like it.
Simple.
Like it. Now, this is going to be a very, very intriguing question to answer. This is from Cam Parnham. Now, this is a question that often does the rounds when you're having coffee with the lads, talking about the footy, you're at the pub with the beers in your hand.
There could be 20 answers to this question.
That's correct. Now, I've come up with mine. Who is the most underrated player in the AFL?
This is topical.
I'm intrigued to see.
Let's do the Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, are we doing that?
I reckon yours is the same as mine.
I don't know.
Does he play for Collingwood?
He does play for Collingwood.
Piss off. Come on. Are his initials SS?
No.
Are his initials SP?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, they do both play for Collingwood.
I'm
going to go Steele Robert Sidebottom.
Oh, you've used this middle name.
I love Steele Sidebottom.
Steele Roberto.
Big shout out to Paul Italiano, his little doppelganger looks like him. Paul Italiano's a lot slower than him though. But no, Steele Sidebottom is by far the most underrated player in the AFL. And I think because he hangs around, he lurks that wing area. Man, you got to look at some of the numbers this guy posts. He's probably not the type. I mean, this year, yes, he may be in that discussion if Collingwood keep going about the All-Australian.
AA.
He's definitely in the mix.
Is it a green jacket, the AA?
Gold jacket, green jacket. Who gives a shit?
Happy Gilmore.
No, Steele Sidebottom is my most underrated player in the AFL. And look, I could probably point out another 5 or 6, but he is the most underrated player in the AFL. And again, I'm going to go back to the point of influencing games.
Yes.
I'm talking about guys that are having direct outcomes that result in a game being won for their team.
Well,
he's number one, in my opinion.
He's had the winning moment in both the Essendon game and Adelaide game.
He's too good.
I know he kicked the point against the Crows, but it was the most important point he kicked for the year. My most underrated player is the other wing, Josh Dacos.
Ah, okay.
Does not get
Wow.
the plaudits he deserves. This man is elite. He's an elite winger, ball winner. He was one of the top-rated players.
Do you think
on the
they
weekend.
might bookend the wings, the Pies?
I've got a
Could
feeling
they possibly
might.
bookend the
I've
wings?
got a feeling they might. Yeah, ran you through his numbers over the weekend. 31 touches and 1 goal for a winger. Absolutely sensational. 5 scoring involvements, 7 clearances. Just
7 clearances is good for a wingman.
influence. I think his year's been fantastic. I think he is one of the most underrated players in the comp. And
Yep.
he is a player who gets ignored because of his brother.
brother,
He won't get
yes.
ignored at Collingwood.
Very similar.
But every
Yes,
time you
good
mention
point.
Dacos in the AFL
They're
at
all
the moment,
talking about Nick.
I ain't talking
Oh,
about Josh.
Are you Nick's brother?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
that's right.
exactly.
There you
Yeah,
are.
you're Nick's brother.
No,
is
we
what he
shouldn't
gets
treat him
referred
like
to.
that. He deserves
No.
a lot of respect.
He does deserve a lot of respect,
So-
and I think he is the most underrated player in the league at the moment.
Appreciate that question, Cam.
Yes.
That's a very, very good question. And
It's-
we could sit here if
Hot
we had
topic.
3 hours to speak.
Hot
we
topic,
would.
sir. Hot topic.
Yeah, good question.
Now, the final question is from a very good friend of the show, Marcus Mancuso. Who's going to win the 2023 flag and why is it Carlton?
Okay, who's going to win the 2023 flag?
Well,
Well,
we know
to
your
answer the
opinion.
second question, it's not going to be Carlton, unfortunately. As romantic as that sounds, Marcus, we'd all love that to be the case as Carlton supporters, but I believe Geelong will win the premiership, and I'm going to just keep on tipping them every week. As far as I'm concerned, it might be arrogant, but Geelong have won the premiership until they don't win the premiership.
Well, okay.
There you go.
That's exactly right. I like that.
Back
I
to
like
back.
that. Okay, so audience questions and opinions.
Who do you
done and
think's going to win the
dusted.
premiership? You're not getting away scot-free, mate. You got to make a statement too.
Melbourne. Well, I got them as my 1 seed at the moment.
Sure,
but,
sure.
Yeah, could change as the year goes on.
Absolutely. It's transitory.
Yeah, yes, exactly right. It's or as people on the socials look, it's a flip flop type of moment for me. I've been flip flopping a little bit this year.
Getting into the
So
preview.
again, audience questions. Thank you very much. Be sure
Appreciate
to send them
that,
in.
guys.
You
Thank
can
you
see
so
all
much.
the handles and stuff there or on the bottom of the screen.
We've probably missed a
Weekend
couple
Grill
as
6.
we were on our way here to record the show, but we will get through them all. We do acknowledge and we do appreciate them all. Thank
And
you.
again, thank you for getting us to 100 followers. Round 8 preview. Let's zip through
All right,
these,
let's go.
AD, because we'll. I think this is the longest running show we've had so far. We've got plenty
Possibly.
to talk about. It's good.
Topical.
So the games coming up this weekend, we've got Carlton v Brisbane, Richmond v West Coast, Geelong v Adelaide, Gold Coast host the Demons, Giants and Doggies go head to head, the Dockers and Hawks, Power and Bombers, Magpies, Swans, and it's rounded out by the Roos and Saints under the roof at Marvel Stadium. Let's start with this Friday night crunch match under the roof between the Blues and the Lions. Who's your tip?
Carlton. Definitive.
Yep, completely agree. I think Carlton will win.
They should not be losing this game. Under no circumstance can they lose this game.
Rich and
I mean, in
Zorko out.
theory, they can lose it.
Correct.
But as a team, as a mentality,
Yep.
they can't. They have to go into this game basically with the attitude, under no circumstance can we lose this game.
I like it.
Yep.
So Rich
I'm gonna
and
go
Zorko.
Carlton.
Yep, I'm going Carlton as well. I think they'll cover the spread too. Lions are missing Rich and Zorko, which is huge for them.
Yep.
Tigers and West Coast. I mean,
Mate, do not be shocked if West Coast win this game and Damien Hardwick is having a press conference resigning on Monday morning. Okay.
that's a big call.
I'm not saying it's going to happen.
That's a huge call.
If that okay, let me enunciate it a bit better.
Yes,
If West Coast win this game, Damien Hardwick will be resigning on Monday morning.
you reckon?
100%.
Okay, sheesh. All right. I'm tipping Richmond with no confidence.
Oh, I mean,
whatsoever.
I think Richmond will win,
Yeah,
but I'm just putting
if,
out
if that does occur. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Geelong and Adelaide. I'm saying Geelong comfortably.
Geelong, they'll go 5-3. They'll be winning this game.
Yep. Suns and Demons. This is an
Tricky.
intriguing game.
This is a very, very hard game.
Yep.
Don't look at the ladder position here to help you determine it. The Suns historically, when they've played Melbourne up at Heritage Bank or the old Metricon,
Giving it a bit of a run.
they have given a bit of a run. I'm going to stick with Melbourne. This is going to be it'll get to the last half. It'll be shit conditions. It'll
Dewy.
be greasy, dewy,
Yucky.
ugly.
Yep.
Yep, mate. I'm going to find something better to do when that game's on, to be honest with you.
Yep.
But I think Melbourne will win.
I
Yourself?
think Melbourne will win. I think Melbourne will win, but I think Gold Coast can cover the line.
Yep.
I think that's what I'm looking at there. GWS and the Bulldogs. GWS were good against the Swans. Terrific win. I think the Bulldogs just going a little bit better than Sydney at the
Morals.
moment. Yep. Oh, there you go.
And you never know who I'm talking about.
Morales, the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Unbeatable.
Unbeatable. Okay, Doggies unbeatable. Dockers and Hawks. This is a very odd game. Optus Stadium. Dockers should be advantaged. The setup was shocking last week. Gabba, wet conditions. Brisbane, forget about that. I'm Fremantle here.
Yeah, despite what we was mentioning earlier about Hawthorn and how well they played for the best part of 2.5 quarters, I do believe Fremantle will be winning this game.
Next game is very intriguing. Sunday afternoon, it's the early game. Port Adelaide versus Essendon at Adelaide Oval. Essendon are pretty short in this.
6-4?
Yeah. I don't know.
250?
Yeah. They seem pretty short to me. I think it's a good price Port. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't beat the system.
Yeah,
No. Look. I think Essendon would have derived a lot of confidence over their last 2 weeks.
Too.
They've played good footy. At the same time, I do believe Port Adelaide are, if they aren't at the moment, one of the hottest teams in the comp. As you know, spoken about by yourself, you've got them number 3 in your top 5.
Yep.
I think Port Adelaide will be winning the game. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park.
No, I don't think it will be either.
I reckon that's why the market reflects that.
Yeah, I reckon the Bombers are going to stick around.
I'm going to run some stuff. I'm not sure. I'm going to, top of my head, I'm going to say Port.
Port just.
Yep.
Collingwood and Sydney at the MCG.
I know what you're going to say, yeah. I know who you're going to tip.
I'm going to go Magpies.
Are you really?
Yes. I think Sydney... This is what I think will happen. I think Sydney will produce their best performance of the last month, but they'll still lose. Sydney they'll be great value for money to watch this weekend. I think they'll give Collingwood a huge run, but I think Collingwood are they've got all the momentum up at the moment.
I'm going to stick with the Collingwood juggernaut.
Yeah.
I also believe, very similar to the Port and Essendon game, I think this will be a lot closer than what people think.
I agree with that.
I see them tumbling into the Swans.
Could very well be. I can
just see. I don't know. Look, I'm going to stick with the Pies.
Yep.
But I can see some of the sharps.
This is a real. I think
Sydney.
this is it's a bit of a danger game for the Magpies. I think definitely.
I agree.
Definitely. And the last game, who cares?
Who is it?
Saints and Roos and Saints.
What do
they get there? What 25,000?
Look, who's going to win the game? That's what we're here for. St Kilda's going to win the game.
St Kilda's going to win.
That's it.
Okay. So to wrap, on Blues over Lions, Tigers over Eagles, Cats over Crows, Demons over Suns, but I think the Suns can cover the spread.
Are we actually going to... I reckon we've gone the exact same. Sorry, continue. I reckon you and I have tipped exactly the same.
No, we have. Doggies to beat the Giants, Dockers over the Hawks, Port just over the Bombers, Magpies to beat the Swans, and Saints to beat the Roos.
We have identical tips, so no need for me to say it. You heard it from Paul.
Love it. Okay, again...
Thank you.
Thank you very much for getting us to 100 followers on both Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
Like, subscribe on YouTube.
Yep.
Please
Thank
do
you
it.
for your questions too.
Yep.
Very good questions.
Please send them in
it.
again. We're going to be recording again Wednesday, 2 p.m. as far as we know next week, barring any disasters. Yep. So again, send through your questions. It is much appreciated. We'll tag you out in the socials as well. And thanks very much. Hope your team or whoever you follow wins on the weekend. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back next week, AD, with number 8.
Too easy.
All the best.
Thanks, guys.